Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hey everyone, I'm David Percy and I'll be hosting today's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, no warnings or advisories out anywhere for wind or anything else here, both out west, southern Alaska, the Panhandle, and also up over the interior. Now the breakup map showing Kuskokwim River open from one end to the other here, all the way out to the mouth of things, and the Yukon River showing quite an extensive area of some open areas, and then right through here, it's, I'd call that mostly open, and still a lot of ice down over the deltas, and a little bit of breakup up there along the Koyukuk River, and of course the North Slope, still a little ways from breakup up there. And again, no flood warnings or watches or advisories at all out anywhere. Fire danger still on the high side here over the central Tanana Valley. Not quite as bad as it was yesterday. Had some extreme up there, but got high to extreme fire danger here. Probably be in the extreme areas for the Susitna Valley tomorrow if a little bit of a breeze kicks up there, and that extends back to the southwest and kind of on the high side for the northern southeast coast, where temperatures in some areas reach the lower 70s today. On the satellite, big area high pressure here, as you can see by the huge dark area right over the southern part of the state back into Bristol Bay, and that directing all this storminess northward, all the cloudiness. A couple of weak fronts out here and some bands of mid and high level clouds. You see one, the cirrus approaching Nunivak Island, and this portion right up through here a little deeper and producing some rain, drizzle, fog along the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula from well, like Nome back to St. Lawrence Island, and up through the strait. Moisture also falling as reported at Kivalina and Kotzebue today. And this area taking a turn to the east-northeast as it comes over the top of the high there, and but not really doing a whole lot there on the Arctic coast. Southwest winds all through this area in the 15 to 30 mile per hour range. But you can see on the eastern North Slope there, sunshine over the eastern areas there, but a lot of clouds up over the central Tanana Valley. However, as the afternoon rolled on, and beyond this picture, these clouds went from a stable condition to a more unstable characteristic as temperatures rose into the 60s. And then down here off the southeast coast, we've got a weak low here right in this area. Southeast flow pulling those clouds to the northwest. Had some scattered showers in that area as well. Nothing too heavy. There was some sunshine as well, especially up over the Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, Juneau area, resulting in warmer temperatures, but some showers here up over the Yukon, almost right down into the Yakutat area, keeping it a little cooler there, and some of that shower condition could get into the Wrangell Mountains or even the extreme eastern areas. And looking out to the west, just again, a lot of cloudiness out here over the Bering Sea, just about everywhere. Could be a few breaks there around Adak, but a lot of solid clouds in the lower levels out towards Shimia. Here's a front here coming eastward from across the Russian Far East. All of this moisture, that's taking off to the northeast, but some of this will spill in, coming over the top of this upper level ridge and continued westerly flow across the northern interior. And for today on the chart, high pressure at the surface there, right over the southwest interior, and then all the cloudiness up here over the, well, mostly to the north of the Alaska Range, but some spilling down south of the mountains to the Wrangells here in the east. And depending on the time of day, you had a little bit of rain or light snow up there with that trough as across the Arctic coast, and then the moisture up here. But not too bad down to the south, the front with some rain along that. And gusty winds mostly up in this area again. We're a little bit more gradient and seeing gusts as high as 30 miles an hour at times, but a lot lighter in over the interior to just about non-existent winds, or very light, just barely breezes. And that's about it. And then the scattered showers here over the southeast coast with the cloudiness, and quite an extensive area of cloudiness here over the eastern Gulf of Alaska, northeast Pacific, and that's all kind of pulling back to the west and northwest, and may actually by tomorrow at this time be hugging the entire coastline there, poised to possibly move in toward Kodiak Island later on. And for tonight, just made it all cloudy out here, but that should stay along or off the coast. I think Prince William Sound should stay mostly clear. Definitely clear here over south central Alaska, and decreasing clouds up over the interior. This front edging its way eastward, but again becoming quite weak here in the southern portion. Just a very weak trailing edge coming across St. Lawrence Island, extending down toward Nunivak Island with not much in the way of anything with it, maybe some light sprinkles, and that's about it. And also the winds will be tending to increase again along the western Arctic coast, the Chukchi Sea, mainly Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, but lighter off to the northeast there. High pressure up over the eastern Arctic coast should make for a fair day here over the Brooks Range, or for a fair night over the Brooks Range on down to the south. Again, a few isolated showers possible here over the northeast, or the northern southeast coast and along the eastern interior, mostly south of Eagle, more likely the Northway Toke area, just a risk, but most of that will be off into Canada, and lesser amounts in over Alaska. And the next system out here, as we saw in the satellite imagery, a little more stronger, and that's going to actually begin to push eastward. This front will move to about this position here tomorrow, with just a slight chance of some moisture with it from about the Brooks Range on up to the Arctic coast. Of course, best chances earlier in the day on the west side, but as this moves eastward, mainly just an increase in the clouds due to that southwest wind flow associated with it, tending to, or it will make for VFR conditions, if not just mostly sunny skies there on the east side with light winds. And again, a little brisk on the winds, 10 to 20 miles an hour, maybe a few higher gusts on the west side, extending down into the Bering Strait. High pressure light winds here over the Bering Sea, but quite a bit of cloudiness out there. Look for some breaks with the offshore flow along the southwest coast here, and areas of fog though, especially on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, as well as the Unalaska and Nikolsky areas and the Aleutians. Could be a chance of sunshine as well out in those areas. And then the next storm here becomes more of a threat late tomorrow and tomorrow night, probably pushing some gales into the western marine zones out there tomorrow night, and that will push eastward into the central Aleutians late in the day, actually over the western Aleutians to about Amchitka Island. Monday afternoon, winds picking up to 20, maybe 25 knots late there toward Adak, but much lighter here under high pressure, light variable winds northeast to becoming southeast from Atka, but light winds all the way to the Alaska Peninsula. Mostly sunny again over the Bristol Bay Zone and south central Alaska. 60s to lower 70s, just like the forecast for tomorrow. A couple of sunny, warm days coming up here through much of the southern and eastern parts of the state. But this front looks like cool, rainy weather will make landfall along the northwest coast probably Monday morning there, and then some showers kicking off in advance up, say, from the Koyukuk Valley to the Brooks Range in the afternoon hours. Otherwise, nothing much else out ahead of this front. Dry and mild, with southwest flow increasing there over the eastern north slope areas and the Arctic coast, looking really good Monday. But the winds coming up, possible gale force winds ahead of that front, especially for the Chukchi Sea. Gale force gusts probably for Point Hope, maybe Cape Lisburne as well, maybe even Kivalina. And then this front kind of dragging across the Seward Peninsula, making for a rainy, cloudy kind of day there. For the Panhandle, after a scattered variable, partly to mostly with a chance of tomorrow kind of day, a little bit better chance of shower activity on Monday, mostly down to the south in conjunction with this trough over the British Columbia area, and then the moisture flowing northward with that next front. But to the north, look for scattered isolated showers, mostly cloudy skies. And again, a lot of clouds along and off the coast, some of which may spread into Kodiak Island, but it will be a dry day either way, whether it's cloudy or less cloudy, and mostly cloudy on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, places like Sandpoint, Chignik, on up towards the King Salmon area, lots of sunshine. High pressure could make for quite an extensive area, low clouds and fog over the Pribilof Islands, but look for some breaks out there as well. Eastern Aleutians. Sun could break out over the St. Paul area, but this front, chances of rain along the Seward Peninsula once again, as I mentioned, on up to the north. A little bit colder conditions coming in behind for snow showers. And then again, a lot of rain, gusts 45 miles an hour with that front coming into the western Aleutians. And for temperatures today, 72 at Skagway at 4 p.m. was a warm spot reported on the chart here anyway. Sitka missing off the chart, but they were 51 degrees, and Yakutat 50 degrees all at 4 p.m. this afternoon, 63 down at Klawock, and 46 at Middleton Island, Cordova, up to 61. Lower 60s also for the Copper River Basin. Lower to mid 60s here, Kenai Peninsula, Madanuska, Susitna Valleys, Anchorage 65. And cooler with the clouds up here over the Tanana Valley, but Fairbanks did manage to reach 60 with a 56 at Delta, 55 at Tanana. A little cooler there at Bettles with 48, and Anatuvik, 43 degrees there. 39 Arctic Village, and mostly in the 30s there along the Arctic coast. A couple of the outer areas like Barrow at 32 and Kaktovik 30 degrees, but anywhere from the upper 30s to near 50 over the northwest. And again with the clouds and rainfall, moisture there, 35 at Nome, 40s out along the coast, 50s inland, 64 at Sleepmute, one of the warmer locations there, up to 58 at Iliamna, and a 59 at King Salmon, with 50s here along the peninsula and 40s everywhere else out west. Up Shimia with 37. Lows tonight will be your 4 p.m. temperature, 37 degrees at Shimia. That's not much change at all. Same thing for the St. Paul area, upper 30s for the Aleutians, 40s here over the interior, but some areas here forecast down into, well, near the freezing mark tonight with upper 20s there over the Koyukuk Valley, then definitely teens and 20s up over the north slope and the Arctic coast, but milder out to the west with more wind and cloud cover, 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, 60s and 70s over a big portion of the interior, cooler up to the north and of course back out to the west, and then 50s to lower 60s for the southeast coast and 40s out to the Aleutians. Flying weather, lots of VFR here, except right along the coastline, but Bristol Bay all the way into Canada, good VFR all the way northward, but an area marginal VFR to IFR, mostly on the southern slopes of the Brooks Range there, and out in the Bering Sea, lots of marginal VFR, some IFR, but that'll be mostly out to the west. This with the next front as it begins to spread northeastward late tomorrow. And for passes, Anatuvik, occasionally marginal, especially on the southern entrance, otherwise VFR. And Adigan, same forecast, a little bit farther to the east, so maybe a little better. Possible marginal stuff on the southern entrance, Lake Clark and Merrill. And the entire Alaska Range tomorrow will be VFR from one end to the other. Isabel, Mentasta, and Tanita, all looking really good. Portage, Sealing's visibility is unlimited as Chilkoot and White. Probably be some clouds around and maybe a few showers, but it'll stay VFR. And freezing levels again with upper high pressure in over the west central interior, south to north flow, subsidence of the air mass, 6,000 to 8,000 feet, pushing way up there off the Arctic coast. And then you can see the location of that frontal boundary right in this area, the colder air back to the west. And icing threats, just some possible mixed type icing here. Mostly in Canada, over the Yukon. Some of that could spill into the northern Panhandle possibly, and then a couple of bands affecting the Arctic coast there in that southwest flow. And this little heavier batch out in this area, that'll be coming in Monday to the northwest coast. And upper level wind flow chart, strong high pressure tomorrow right over the interior, the southern interior. There's that southwest jet, and that'll keep all that storminess up in that area. But the northeast winds could help warm it up quite a bit tomorrow over the areas, or for the areas south of the Alaska Range. See at 9,000 feet, that downsloping wind flow off the Alaska Range. Very light here under the high pressure area. Southwest up to 40 knots there for the western Arctic coastal areas, and kind of a southeast breeze at 20 for the Panhandle. Same pattern basically here at 3,000 feet with light winds over the southeast coast and light and variable from southwest up to the northeast, and then that southwest flow on the back side of that up to 25 to 35 knots. Turbulence-wise, of course, the lines up with the strongest winds here, central Arctic coast all the way back down to St. Lawrence Island. Very smooth here over much of the interior, and maybe a little choppy over Prince of Wales Island. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
The flood that buried Fairbanks in water that was 4 to 5 feet deep started on August 8th, 1967.
We had strong southwest flow in August 1967, and this provided a very large area of moisture from the North Pacific and the southern Bering Sea to be lifted up and into interior Alaska. We had a stationary frontal boundary persist across interior Alaska for over a week. So as weather systems moved in off the North Pacific and into the Bering Sea, they moved across this frontal boundary. So we had continuous weather systems moving right across the interior, which kept bringing more and more rainfall to the Fairbanks area.
Now, there are a lot of conditions to help create this extensive, this persistent rainfall. And of course, moisture is one of them. But moisture from a typhoon?
It was Typhoon Hope, which had been spinning around in the western Pacific, got pulled up into this flow, and that warm, moist air from the typhoon got pushed into the interior.
Normally, the Alaska rain prevents a lot of moisture from making its way into the Fairbanks area or into the interior. In August of 1967, that heavy influx of moisture from Typhoon Hope took a different path.
You've got the Alaska Range here, the Brooks Range here. There's really no high terrain here, and that moisture just can slide right in and right into Fairbanks. And when it came along this stationary boundary, and then the hills to our north, you know, all that air had to be lifted up, and it cooled, and it caused it to, enhance the precipitation.
So what was learned as a result of the 1967 flood? Well, it cost $240 million to build, and so far there hasn't been a flood since 1967. The closest Fairbanks came to flooding again was on June 4th, 1992.
The Chena Flood Control Project is upstream of downtown Fairbanks. If the water is expected to reach a certain level in downtown Fairbanks, they'll lower the gates here and start shaving off some of that water. If this floodway fills up all the way, the water will eventually overtop this sill and go into the Tanana River and be diverted totally around Fairbanks.
Over 12,000 people were evacuated.
It was so strange to see this current going down the street and the boats going by, and then we got to Barnett Street. It was a little different then, but I just remember the rough water.
He thought something was internally wrong. Something had happened inside the house, like a pipe had burst or the sewer had backed up. He had no idea, none of us had any idea that the whole city was flooded. I mean, that was the furthest thing from our mind, thinking about the city flooding. There was no panic. There was just, we got a big problem.
Well, I was almost 5, and I just remember bits and pieces. I remember never being scared and thinking how cool it was watching the water rushing in around the cracks of the front door of our friend's house where we were staying at the time.
The military came and picked us up from our house in a boat. So here's a 4-year-old me sitting on the front of the boat thinking I'm just captain of the world.
There were a lot of very worried people, but everybody was pitching in and helping everybody else.
And then I found out we were actually going to be staying inside a high school on the 2nd floor. It was at Lathrop High School on the 2nd floor, which was a cool thing to me too because I lived in a 1-story home.
The Lathrop Hilton was very busy, of course, with boats arriving and people coming. And they wanted the names of everybody there. And then we were in touch with who was staying out at the universities. Always great confusion.
I remember being lifted out the next day by helicopter to the university from the rooftop. I remember that part, and I remember sleeping on tables up at I believe it was the Gruning buildings. The most frightened part, the river had washed the bridge away, and there was a beam that we had to walk across, this raging torrent, and I can remember having to walk across that with my mother and being very frightened. And I remember that being the only real scary part. The rest of it, from a 5-year-old's perspective, was pretty cool.
If I learned anything, it was that there's no need to panic. As long as safety's first and as long as everyone's safe, the rest is just property.
What makes you stay?
Well, I guess the people. I've always had such a good time here. I enjoyed teaching. I liked it when I worked at the News Miner. I'm involved in lots of things here. I just like the people.
Well, first of all, I talked to some of the old timers, and they said, oh, we'll get maybe a little bit of water in the basement. So I listened to the old timers, but I also, something in my gut told me that this wasn't, this could be a problem.
It was a continuous rain. I mean, there'd be very few breaks.
And this thing came in the night, you know. I got a hold of Bill Wally, and I said, hey, Bill, get on the radio and tell them that we may be having flooding here. And we woke up and the next morning and the city was underwater.
They handed me a sleeping bag and a radio. Safeway was across where the post office is now. They looked like they might have had a half-inch of water in there. They were pumping it out and trying to keep it out.
Was there concern about looting?
Well, there wasn't to start with. Here come two teenagers in a brand new canoe that was loaded to the gun wall. I just picked up the radio and said, what's the procedure on looting? And immediately Red Boucher's voice, the mayor of Fairbanks, came back and said, unhesitatingly said, shoot on sight. And there was no more looting in Fairbanks.
What has stayed with you till now that you can remember about the flood?
20 years of military and especially combat training. But you take action, and if you end up with egg all over your face, so you made a mistake. If you don't take action and people lose their lives, you will regret it forever.
The mood of the community when the flood hit.
Fantastic. Probably if you look through the archives, I called it the can-do city. At that particular time of year, we were not that far from freeze-up, and the whole community, from the university, Dr. Wood, everybody just pitched in, and I was very proud of them.
Would you change anything if you went through it today?
Not a bit. No, And I'm just thankful I had that gut instinct to go ahead and do what we did. I live in Anchorage now, but Fairbanks will always be my home of heart. They're just a different bunch of people. True pioneer spirit. Hey, anything we want, anything we set our mind to do in Fairbanks, we get done.
Welcome back. Well, yesterday's analysis looked something like this here. Roughly the edge, which is about a tenth sea ice or more, and this edge right through here is running about 1 to 9/10 all the way across. That should continue northward with the persistent southerly winds out here. By next Wednesday, this whole area should advance anywhere from 15 to 35 nautical miles northward. This ice flow right there by St. Matthew Island probably will be gone over the next, probably by Monday. Anyway, for the marine forecast, light variable winds over all of the southeast coast tomorrow, 5 to 10 knots. And then picking up a little bit here down to the south, again, that front starting to approach the area down to the south. So you may see some 20-knot east-southeasterlies here on the extreme south coast, otherwise remaining light and variable over the inside waters. For the Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, light variable winds tomorrow. That'll extend in across southern Cook Inlet, the Barren Islands at about 15, northeast 15 here. East side of the island, maybe 20 knots or Shelikof Strait. And then for Monday, with lower pressure over the interior and higher pressure over the Gulf, look for a southwest breeze, especially in the late afternoon hours here for Cook Inlet, at about 15 knots the way it looks at this point in time. And the same for Prince William Sound, especially blowing up toward Valdez. And light variable winds, though, under the high itself here, 5 to 10 knots over the Gulf of Alaska. Northeasterlies 10 to 15 for Kodiak. And for the Bristol Bay zone, northeast 15. Otherwise, about the same everywhere here, north to northeast, 15 knots, seas running 4 to 6 feet. And then on Monday, light winds up over Bristol Bay, light winds from the northeast here for the peninsula, extending back up towards Sitkinak. Out in the Aleutians, light variable winds tomorrow here for the central Aleutians under high pressure, otherwise north to northeast, 15 or 10 to 20 knots. And then Those winds starting to come up late tomorrow afternoon, up to small craft advisories ahead of that next storm, and then those gale warnings will push into the western areas for the tomorrow night and slowly advance eastward here on Monday, and then behind the front, lightening up, picking up to 20 knots in the afternoon for the central Aleutians. Really light breezes here for the Fox Islands. And the Pribilof Islands, same thing there, light winds tomorrow. South 20 to 25, St. Matthew Island up to St. Lawrence, and northwest 15 turning north south of Nunivak. And for the Monday outlook, light variable winds for the Pribilofs, really laid down there under high pressure. And south 25 knots, that next front coming across, a little more potent, and probably some brisk wind or small craft advisories, or brisk wind advisories for St. Lawrence Island, lightening up though into the northern Bering. Arctic coast, lightest winds on the east side, a little brisker back here to the west with brisk wind advisories from about the Point Lay area all the way down to the Strait. And then on Monday, that next system again briefly could kick the winds up to 35 knots here, especially for this Cape Lisburne to Point Hope marine zone. And then small crafts dropping back to 15 knots toward the central coast, but extending all the way down to the Bering Strait. Very light winds on the east side. Tonight again, kind of variably cloudy with a risk of a shower here over the Panhandle, otherwise clear and calm over the interior. A little cloudier, a little breezier, especially back to the northwest, but nothing big at all happening. And tomorrow, sunny and warm, 60s to mid-70s from south central Alaska right up into the interior. Scattered isolated showers to the Panhandle, and then the next couple of systems out here to the west, that will be pushing in Monday morning.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.